I felt awful by the end of it. And I felt like I traumatized her for life. So much so that I still carry this story around in my heart as one of my worst parenting. And I have asked Natasha.
I was going to ask you, I'm curious, does she remember this?
Do you have trauma over this, Natasha? And she was like, what are you talking about, Mom? Life is like a roller coaster, but it's better when we go through it together. Welcome to the Candace Cameron Bure Podcast. We're here to share conversations about life's challenges, celebrations, and everything in between. Season 7 is Becoming Better Parents with Dr. Josh and Christi Straub. Come join us. Hi, guys. Welcome back.
Yeah,
I can't wait to dive in today because this week's topic is about, can we make parenting simpler?
And all the parents said amen. Please.
Could parenting be simpler?
Yeah.
It's really exciting because I do want to know. But before we dive into that, I would really like our guests to get to know you guys a little bit better. So will you tell me how you met and what your love story is?
Which version do you want?
His or the truth?
I want both.
Hers or the truth?
You start and then I'll just correct the parts that are...
So we met in grad school, I was... we were both grad assistants and we were working late one evening and I saw her. She was working, we were the only two up there. We had these cubicles, that you're working in and that type of thing. And so I saw her and we were leaving around the same time. And so I held the door for her and I introduced myself. I said, hello, I'm Josh. And she said, hi, I'm Christi. And we walked down together and we spent the next 20 to 30 minutes having a really incredible conversation. And I remember she asked me out on a date that night, that first 20 to 30 minutes.
It starts.
I
just said collectively.
It was Christmas time. There was a Christmas tree,
This sounds like a Great American Family movie.
Yes, it was.
Kind of was. And I was kind of like, no, to be fair, she was going with a group of other students.
It was all of us grad counseling students were going to this Christmas thing. And I was like, do you want to come? It was not a date. It was would you like to join this group?
I don't know though.
Well, he took it as a date.
Yeah, he totally did.
You were being kind and saying, just come join us.
Yeah.
So fast forward. So I said no. I was super busy and I was like, no, that's okay. And I just went on my way. I didn't think anything more of it other than it was an amazing conversation. 2 weeks later.
I did. He walked away and I remember literally praying to the Lord. And I was like, whoever I'd heard of him because he spoke on relationships and dating at the time. And so I'd heard of him and I thought whoever his girlfriend is, she's a really lucky girl because I thought he was going to be one way, just knowing, hearing his name and seeing him speak and stuff. And then meeting him, I was like, he was so genuine. He was so down. It was I connected with someone for the first time. I'd been there for years doing grad school and it was you just connect with somebody. You're I feel like I've known you forever.
What did you think he was going to be because of all the things that you heard?
I thought he would be so into himself and all the girls liked him. And so I was I'm
that's
not
funny.
Interested.
Being a relationship expert, but you thought he'd be conceited.
I know.
He was the expert.
It was everyone.
And he knew better.
Yeah.
Okay.
But he wasn't. He was so... I just really, I was like, I like you. Even if we were just friends, you're so lovely. I liked you so much. And then we ran into each other 2 weeks later.
So 2 weeks later, because I wasn't I was looking for a relationship at the time. I had a lot going on with my career and stuff like that. And so 2 weeks later, we're in the same restaurant, but I didn't realize. So I'm in this business meeting and I'm looking across the way and I see this girl and I saw her. And I kept thinking to myself, she's beautiful. But the day that we met, the night we met, her hair was down. She had no glasses on. In the restaurant that day, she had glasses on and her hair was pulled up. And so I go to leave and I heard my name called and I turn around and I walk back to the booth and it was a professor from the university who Christi's having lunch with. Well, so it's the same exact table of this girl that I've been looking at. And I'm like, I can't really look at her right in the eye. And so I'm talking to the professor and the professor goes to introduce me to her and her friend. And it's the first time I actually made eye contact with her. And I went to say, hi, I'm Josh. And she looked at me and she said, hi, I'm Chris. She goes, actually, we've met. And I was like, ooh, she's got some sass to her. I did remember you as soon as I saw you, I remembered. And it was that point that I was like, I'm intrigued. She has me intrigued. Who is this? And so as we would in our generation, I went back up to the cubicle and I went to find her last name and befriend her on Facebook, because that's just how you figure things out.
Yeah.
Yep. So,
and I went back to Canada for like a month.
Yeah.
Because I'm Canadian.
It was Christmas time. So she went to Canada for Christmas.
And so we would send messages
back and forth.
That wouldn't make a great Christmas movie. That part would be kind of boring.
The Facebook?
Yeah.
But I think the intrigue, though, you could go into stories, into each other's stories.
We should totally make this a Christmas movie.
I got to wait 2 days before
Guys, this is what I do professionally. I know. I can make the Christmas movie, okay? I can figure out the story. I know how to make it work.
So good. And then the rest is
Where in Canada are you from? Sorry.
London, Ontario.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And so I was just, some people ask me, like, they're like, oh, it's so funny. Like, you're Canadian. I'm like, I know. And here I am, like 18 years later, still in the States. And it sometimes still shocks me. Like, my kids are American. That's so weird. I never meant to stay, but
and
I
then
met
we had to
him
go through the interview process. I mean, you talk about continued movies. It's like the proposal. We had to go through the interview process. We had to go through immigration and do all that.
Terrifying.
And that was a whole thing too.
Right.
So
I had to prove, like, I really do love him. I really promise I do. I'm leaving my country because I love him.
So, and here we are, 3 children later.
You told it mostly accurate. So
yeah.
Good job, Josh. Yeah. Great job. So we are talking this week about if parenting could be simpler.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of a story when Natasha was young. And, it's not a story that I love because I felt like the worst parent in the moment. I would say she was probably maybe she probably was 4. And she'd eaten chocolate. She had it all over her face. So I said, Natasha, did you eat chocolate? And she said, no. And so I said, Natasha, did you eat chocolate? No. And it was kind of like cute at the start.
Yeah.
And then it became defiant because she was just flat out lying to me.
Yeah.
And that got me upset because she would not admit to eating the chocolate when there was clear evidence on her face. So here I am, still a very young mom, and we got into this battle. Mm-hmm. And I was like, how am I an adult and I cannot win this argument with a 4-year-old who's flat out lying to my face? It made me so angry. Yes. And then I started going, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? Val wasn't home. I didn't have him to just call in the moment. And I'm like going through the list of all the parenting books that I had read in my memory. It was like, just searching through them, thinking, what's the right thing to do right now? And I know that I have to show that I'm the adult and I have to win this argument and I can't let it die until I win it so that she knows that I'm the one she has to listen to, but I can't break her spirit while she's doing it. I still have to be loving and I have to be kind. And I got so overwhelmed, like thinking of all the things that I'm supposed to do, all the advice I'd been given over the years, because whatever I was doing for the last 10 minutes, arguing with my 4-year-old wasn't working. Yes. And I got so flustered. I got so angry. And I remember like I flipped my lid and it became that point of regretful parenting when it was like my face got so in her face with my pointed finger and angry. And it was like, why won't you listen to why won't you tell mommy the truth? I see it on your face. You have to do, and when I can step back and look at that, the broad view of it, I'm like, how awful is that to have this angry, mean mommy face in your face? Like, of course she's not going to admit it at that point when I'm pointing and yelling at her because I probably not making her feel safe in that moment. But still frustrated that she lied in the first place. Like, I didn't care if you ate the chocolate. Just tell me that you ate the chocolate. So all of these mixed emotions are going through my head. And I felt like the worst parent by the end of it. And I still couldn't win the argument.
Yeah.
And I just left that room feeling so defeated. I think it became a matter of, well, you're having a timeout. You have to sit here. You don't get dessert. You don't, all the different consequences. But I just felt like a failure. And I'm like, why is this so hard? Yeah. Why can I not find the right advice? Why can I not have the right parenting manual book that tells me exactly what I'm supposed to do?
And then it works.
And it works.
It needs to work.
Yeah. And I felt awful by the end of it. And I felt like I traumatized her for life. So much so that I still carry this story around in my heart as one of my worst parenting, because I remember myself getting so worked up over it and so angry, because it was like the first time for me.
Yeah.
And I have asked Natasha.
I was going to ask you. I'm curious. Does she remember this?
Do you have trauma over this, Natasha? And she was like, "What are you talking about, Mom?"
She has no memory.
No, she's like, "I do not remember it." And I was like, it brought tears to my eyes, because I'm like, thank you, God, that she doesn't.
And I think that's a beautiful part about parenting and just about, again, God's grace, how he doesn't remember, allow us to remember things, but also allow our kids to remember certain things. But I think that's the thing about the thing you were saying is you were going through every parenting book that you read. And when we get so focused on a specific, I have to do this right now. But we think about, well, what about this discipline technique? And you can't even remember, like maybe I gave her a timeout or something, but it's like, what do I have to do? And I think that's the whole point is, how can we make this simpler, where maybe there's just a different filter through which we are loving our children, through which we're disciplining our children. And I'm going to go back to here before I even get into the research, because I think the research is one thing, but I also think it's something else for us to think about as sons and daughters, as children of God, and how he parents us. And, when you read the scriptures, we obey him not because we choose to obey, but we obey him when we've received and experienced his love. And First John talks about that. And I think it's just really important that obedience flows out of feeling loved. And when we feel loved, we want to obey him.
Yeah.
Because we love because he first loved us, our ability to experience that. And I think we need to remind ourselves of that. I need to remind myself of that so every day. Literally every day when I'm sitting with him and experiencing his love. Because if I don't experience his love and I don't get my identity out of his love, I go other places searching for my identity. Right. And I think it's important as parents, and a lot of times what we'll do is we'll wrap our identity around how well we think we're doing as a parent.
Oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to experience that love from the Father first, so that we then can give that posture to our children. And I think that's where this simplified version of parenting and this one filter comes for me, is that in a moment like that, I can go, how can I be emotionally safe right now? I can, the discipline, the consequences for her lying, that will take care of itself. We'll deal with that. But how can I maintain my calmness? How can I maintain my control in this moment? And I remember talking in the first episode about this, and I want to get into some of the why behind it, because I think when we understand the why, what it does is it gives us the ability to know the how, and it really helps us to nail this down. But I remember working with a dad of a 14-year-old, and he called me, and his daughter wanted to go to a Friday night football game, and her dad said no. And she looked at her dad and she said, "Dad, I hate you." And she went storming to her bedroom. And he called me and he's like, "Josh, I need to figure this thing out. I got to get this right." And I want to use this example to describe the posture of emotional safety, because I think it's really important. The posture of emotional safety is not punishing the negative emotion. It's easy to go, "Don't you ever speak to me that way again. You go to your room. I'm taking your phone for a month, and no, you're not going to that Friday night football game. Do you understand me?" And you just feel the like, oh my goodness. Like, and it's also not dismissing it and going, "Don't be mad at me," or minimizing it. It's just a Friday night football game. Who cares? The ability to be emotionally safe. And when I speak about this on stage, is I'll get down on my knee and enter into their world. So if you have toddlers, you want to get down, you want to enter into their world at eye level. If you have a teenager, you might have to stand on a chair to get to into their world at eye level. What you don't want to do is tower over them, but you want to enter into their world. And for him, the example here, the posture of emotional safety would look like, "Honey, what is it about that Friday night football game that matters to you so much? Because when our children are, Daddy, I hate you, or even lying, right? It's not personal. It's not a personal attack on us as parents, though we take it that way. What it is his daughter had been rejected by a group of friends that she hung out with in the previous school year. And she would see them posting pictures on Snapchat and Instagram of them hanging out without her. And this was the first Friday night they invited her to be a part of something, and her dad said no. And if we don't enter into their world first, what we'll do is we'll build a wall between our heart and theirs. And they'll take that pain, that rejection, and they'll take it to their friends. They'll take it somewhere else to deal with it rather than to us as parents. And I think that's what the posture of emotional safety is our ability to help calm their overwhelmed brain. And so I just want to describe that real quickly, because I think this is important for this. Because we've talked about heightened, and then, when we're heightened, the amygdala, which is the fight, or freeze part of the brain, that's our most primitive part of the brain. That's the part that's going off when Natasha's lying to you and saying, I didn't eat chocolate, with chocolate smeared all over her face, right? Yeah. And you're going, I'm fighting this. Like, I'm taking this, like, you're not going to do this. That's the fight or flight response. And that part of the brain, our brains grow from the bottom to the top. The top part of the brain behind the eyes, which is called the prefrontal cortex, that's the higher functioning parts of the brain. That's the part of the brain known for emotion regulation, cognitive flexibility, social skills, problem solving, and self-control. Now, researchers show that part of the brain doesn't fully develop until we hit about the age of 25, which is why rental car companies are so much smarter than politicians, right? It's like yes. But what's fascinating about this is that we can help our children develop, and our 3-year-old, that part of the brain clearly isn't developed. That's why they're throwing temper tantrums. That's why they're all over the place. But by how we enter into our children's world, we can actually, I remember first talking about this with Christi, and she said, so basically what you're saying is parenting isn't rocket science, it's just brain surgery. I was like, yeah, like we can wire our children's brains. That's good. By how we relate to them. You wire a child's brain for screens, they're going to become wired for screens. You wire them for relationships, they're going to become wired for relationships. And I think it's really important that we get that from a very early age. And what that means is, and this is why emotional safety is linked to every major outcome we desire in our kids. Because you take that 14-year-old girl who's so emotionally overwhelmed. As a father, his ability to help calm that overwhelm, that fight, Dad, I hate you. As he calms that, his ability to enter into her world and calm that triggers her prefrontal cortex. It helps her to begin to think straight. And it's thinking straight, emotion regulation, problem solving, self-control, cognitive flexibility. It's thinking straight that leads to all those major outcomes we desire in our kids. Getting married, staying married, and enjoying your marriage, a career that sticks, living out of your strengths, having a faith that sticks. All of these things are linked to emotional safety. And I think that if we can just, when we see our children in emotional overwhelm, our ability to help bring them down to a place where they're thinking straight is what leads to all, because then Natasha's going to come to a place where she realizes, I don't want to lie to my mom because my mom loves me so much. And I also know that lying isn't going to get me very far in life, right? It's like, it's this ongoing journey.
It took a really long time for her to learn that. She'll be the first to admit it. Okay, she will. But it was like past the teen years. We were into the 20s.
Oh, goodness. But they do. I think that's where just the goodness of God comes into play.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the why behind it. And I think it's important that we see that we're not just, this is an actual way we're developing our children's brains by the environment that they're in.
And I think that can sound really intimidating though, like as you're saying that, as we're developing our children's brains. Because I think, like going back to Natasha's story, like I was so insecure as a young mom. I really was. Did you feel that for you?
Very much so.
Because you were young. You were
I was
a
22.
genuinely young mom. But like, I think just as, first time moms, like, did you feel that insecurity more with her than with the boys as a first time mom? Or do you think?
I had all my kids really close together. Yeah. So I had 3 kids by 25 years old.
Wow.
And I think that the insecurity was with all 3 of them.
Yeah.
And I think my biggest insecurity pressure points were The Declaration of Independence states we all have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm happiest when I'm having a great meal and making memories at the table with my family. Good Ranchers can help you do both of those things by delivering high-quality American meat right to your door. Their meat is the highest quality, it's transparently sourced, and I think your family will love it. Mine does. Don't miss out on their July special. Go get yourself $100 off and free Wagyu burgers for a year with my code CANDY at goodranchers.com. You'll never go back to the meat aisle again once you try Good Ranchers quality. 100% USA grown. No antibiotics or hormones added. I could keep listing the benefits, or you could just try it and see for yourself. The proof is in their protein. Here's my absolute favorite part about Good Ranchers, though. They're a company that is built by people who care. The founders, Ben and Coralie Spell, wanted food they could trust for their kids and couldn't find a convenient, transparent source of American meat. So they embraced the American spirit and came up with a solution we all needed. Go join the meat revolution and claim your independence from the meat aisle at goodranchers.com with my code CANDY. $100 off and free burgers for a year. What? Don't miss out on this offer. Go try Good Ranchers today at goodranchers.com. American meat delivered. I think my biggest insecurity pressure points were wanting to have well-behaved children.
Yes.
I feel like that's probably really high on the list for a lot of people because if they weren't well-behaved, that was a reflection on me and how my parenting skills were and how involved I was with my children. And so, being well-behaved, which I now know is... I still think it's very important, but it's not the most important.
Yeah.
And what else were my insecurities? I just felt like, we all as human beings, we have a herd mentality.
Yeah.
We want to see what other people are doing. We want to follow what the group that seems to be doing it best is doing. So my other insecurity was, am I doing this right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And am I doing what all the other moms that I think look like good moms? Am I doing it their way? And if I'm not, how do I do it? What do I have to learn? And, I realized as parenting went on that it was like, my family can look different than other people's families, and that's okay. It took me a long time to come to that reality, but those were my insecurities.
Well, I think the other thing too is realizing that was your insecurity. And I think there's so many people listening going, that was your insecurity. Everybody's insecure. Everyone's insecure around this.
Same.
Yes.
That it's like, we have to be able to secure ourselves in our identity of who God's created us to be and who he's calling our family to be. Mm-hmm. And we've got to get secure in that. And I think that's got to be a healthy place where, because every family is unique and every child is unique. And as a parent, what your children need. I think intrinsically, what your children need. And so to listen to that first, as opposed to just getting lost in the Instagramming families and parenting experts and the books that are out there, but to really, and there's nothing wrong with it. But I also think that what can happen is we can get lost in it to the point that we're trying to find who we are as a parent via that, as opposed to...
That was that's exactly describing though my story. Cause it was like, I saw the models of some moms where you're like, oh, I like the way she does that. Or I like, and I think to an extent that's wise. Like that's how we acquire wisdom, is watching people that have gone before us and looking at their kids and being like, I want kids like that, not like that, but like that.
Yes.
But I was so insecure in how to actually know that God had a unique stamp for me as a mom, and then for our family and our kids. It didn't occur to me. I wish I had known that from years before, because I remember a story with Landon at the library, and we went to our local library. They had like a little playtime, and it was time to go. And I told him it was time to go, and he lost his mind, just flipped his lid. And I was so embarrassed. Like I remember, I could feel it in my body right now. I was so embarrassed. I was so angry. My whole face was like, just, trying to hold it together because all these moms are watching you. And I'm sure in reality, all the moms are like, oh, I know exactly what that feels like. Right. And yet at the same time, in me, it's like, they're all judging me. They're all staring. I have to get out of here. I have to be calm and I have to say this assertively, but I also need to get him out of here so that I can actually discipline him in the car because I'm so mad at him.
Yeah.
But I realized like it was such an overreaction in me that, and we often use a phrase like what often feels hysterical is historical. So it's when it feels that big in me, I've later realized like there was something going on within me that I wasn't allowed to act that way as a kid. And it was this, like, that's not fair. You don't get to do that because I didn't get to do that. Like, we don't act that way.
Right.
And this is impacting how people look at me, and you are my son, and you will not like this control, like you will not act this way. And that attempt at control put me out of control. And that shame moment, that's the one I carry. I got him in the car and I strapped him in his car seat and we drove home. I was so angry with him. And I remember driving and like using a voice that like just angry mom voice, I have tears just remembering it. And then I remember I pulled back in the driveway, parked in the garage, and our daughter had, was little. She was a baby. So I carried her in the car into the house and I left him in the car, like in the car seat. And I was coming back for him, but I did leave him. Like I took her in. And by the time I came back out for him, in my mind, I was trying to give myself a break and also him a break. He was like wild-eyed with fear, like that I'd left him, in the car. To this day, like I feel that like compassion for my son, but then also on me, like as a young mom, like the number of times we're trying to do good, we're trying to like, okay, so obey all the parenting rules of like, take a break, take space. And then that didn't work either. That made,
Right.
I'm like, I don't know. But I look at him now and I look at our relationship. He's 12 and the repair that we've been through, in just those 12 years, me and that boy, because we formed each other, he's our first. And I think that's been my greatest teacher in trusting the voice of God in me as his mom. Like I can't keep looking to others to tell me how to speak to this little life and this little heart. And I think that if anything has been the one thing that shifted to calm me too, that like the way he turns out, it doesn't reflect on me. But the way I've turned out, that's the way I respond. That's what matters.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that happens is that I have found is that we either parent the way our parents parented us, or we parent the exact opposite way because we hate the way our parents parented us. But we do both of those by default without even thinking about why.
Right.
And I think it's important that we constantly ask ourselves the question, why am I parenting the way that I'm parenting? And I'm just curious from you, maybe if you have how you were parented, like how your parents disciplined you or, some of the, like how you, and if you saw yourself carry some of those things over,
I definitely did. Again, give my mom and dad so much credit. And there are so many good things that they did that I wanted to model as a parent. So they're one of the first people that I would think about, what did my mom and dad do? And one of the first people that I would call if something was stressful. Mom, dad, what should I do? But, I feel like it was a pretty healthy balance from what I could remember, especially in terms of discipline, that there was always a consequence that was played out if we did something wrong. But yet there was always a little bit of fun to it at times, depending on what it was. I remember this story, and my dad to this day, he loves to tell it. He thinks it's the funniest thing. But now listen, for those of you, I get it. This can get controversial, but I was spanked as a kid. So, I get times of change, all the things, but listen, this is what it was. So Anyway, if we did something, we'd usually get a spank. So I don't remember what I did wrong, but he said, go to your room. I'll be in there in 5 minutes and you're going to have a spank. I said, okay. And he comes into my room and he has the belt, because sometimes it was a belt. Sometimes, well, I don't know. Sometimes
we had
it was a wooden spoon.
Yep.
Something. And he looked at me and he goes, you're an actress. I was probably like 6 years old or something, 6 or 7, I'm guessing. And I go, yeah. And he goes, so let's pretend I'm going to give you a spank. And you can kind of like yell like it hurt and pretend to cry. But so everyone will think I gave you a discipline, but I'm not really going to give you one. So I go, okay. And so my dad like takes the belt and like hits the bed with it. I'm like, and I'm like fake crying. And my dad's laughing and I'm laughing. And it was like one of the best memories. And he goes, okay, now just stay in here for 10 more minutes. Just read a book or something. And then you can come out and join for dinner. So,
That's amazing.
The discipline was real in my house, but there were those moments of levity when my dad was just like, you don't really deserve this, or let's just have fun with it.
Oh.
But I also remember some serious times, like my mom. Man, I was in elementary school and my sisters, I have one sister who's 18 months older than me and another who's 4 years older than me. And they were like probably 6th or 7th grade. And so I don't know, I'm probably 2nd or 3rd. There was a school carnival, but because my oldest sister was older, she was working it. And so all the kids, you had to buy some tickets to then go play the games. So my sister was working it, her friends were working it. And then there were us younger kids. Well, as we were playing the carnival games, we'd go up and give a ticket and throw the hoop, do whatever. And then I didn't have any more tickets left. And so my sister and my sister's friends were like, it's okay, just play again. So I'd play again. And they were doing this for a lot of us, all their siblings, like, go ahead, play some more games. Well, if I won the game, they were like, oh, here's a stuffed animal. Give me the stuffed animal. So this kind of went on. So I think I came home with like 3 new stuffed animals. I was all happy. It was a great day. And later that evening, my mom said, I want to talk to you 3 girls. So we were like, what's going on? She said, how was the carnival today? It was great. We had so much fun. Do you want to tell me something about it? And it was like, no. And my mom said, did you guys steal? And I went, no. And she said, well, tell me how the carnival went. Tell me all the things that you did. And then through the conversation, she was like, well, you gave him tickets. Did you keep playing without tickets? Well, yeah, but Bridget let me, or Christi let me, or Cindy let me. Well, they weren't allowed to let you, but you went ahead with it. So you all lied. And then you won the game. Did they give you the stuffed animal? Yeah, but they gave it to me. Yeah, but that was stealing because none of that belongs to any of you. It wasn't their right to give it to you, and it wasn't your right to accept it.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, didn't even realize how much trouble I was in and such bad things that we all did collectively.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it was a conversation, and my mom talked it out. She very much explained it to us, didn't yell, wasn't angry, but then said, now here are the consequences because you did this. Here, this is what's going to go down. And then gave us whatever that consequence was. We were probably grounded for a weekend and couldn't play with friends. And we had to go return the stuffed animals and all those things.
Good. Yeah. No, that's so good. And I think what's beautiful about that story is our ability to be able to, I think that remorse in a child, I was going to ask, did you feel remorse?
Yes, very much. I mean, it's a story I remember.
Yeah, that's totally amazing.
And I think that when our children feel remorse, I think that there's no greater consequence than when our children feel remorse because they get it. They get something. It's like, whoa, I did not see that, or I'm very sorry that I did that. And I think that's absolutely beautiful. But I also think it's important that consequence. I talked about that 14-year-old girl. And the dad leading in grace is very, very important, but there has to be a follow-up.
Yeah.
She still was disrespectful to her father.
Right.
And so there has to be a follow-up in that discipline. But what happens is if we just lead with discipline, if we just lead with the truth, John Townsend, who we talked about earlier, one of the things he writes is truth without grace will always be received as condemnation. And often what happens is as parents, if we get lost in, well, my child's not going to behave well, my child's, and that's going to be a reflection on me if they're not behaving, what we'll do is we'll come down harshly and we'll condemn, or it'll feel like condemnation. And so that's the piece where what we're saying with emotional safety is let's lead and enter into their story and allow the consequences to follow up afterwards. And what you said is your mom sounded so brilliant in how she did that. She didn't raise her voice. She entered your story. You know, she helped you learn a lesson in it, but you also felt the weight of what you did wrong. And I think that was a great model for how we are to lead our children as well, so that we don't first fly off the handle on the front end.
Guys, I just realized that every episode of Full House ends like this. And we learned from Danny Tanner. And so if you want emotional safety, just watch Full House. That's what it all comes down to.
That's what it taught us.
It is so
my
true.
But it is true. It's like and those I feel personally are the best parenting moments I've had with my children when I'm calm and collected and help explain and see them through the journey, try to walk in their shoes and see it from their perspective, and then allow the consequence to play out.
Well, and a lot of times what ends up happening too, when we talk about neurobiology and we talk about how the brain is wired, our brain grows from the bottom to the top, but it also grows from the right to the left. So the right side of the brain is that experiential here and now part of the brain. And that part of the brain actually functions faster than the left side of the brain. So the left side of the brain is the linguistic side. It's the word side. It's where we put language to what it is we're experiencing. And I like to call the middle part of the brain, which is the corpus callosum. I like to call it the binding of the book, just for layman's terms. Because what it does is if you have the right side of a book, but you don't have the left side bound to it, you don't have a full coherent story. And what we're trying to do with our children is we're trying to help them write a coherent narrative for their lives. So we want to help them put language to what it is they're experiencing and feeling in their lives. But if we're just coming down and we're saying, you did this wrong, you have a consequence, go to your room, I'm taking your phone for a month, and no, you're not going to that Friday night football game, that's only one-way communication. That is not engaging our children in the conversation. It's not engaging their brain into going, oh, now you want to go to this Friday night football game. What is your concern? Well, my concern is my friends have been rejecting me. Okay, so my concern is, and did I hear that? See, we want to lead with empathy. We want to lead in a way of going, okay, I hear your story. Did I get this right? Yeah, Dad, you heard me right. Okay, so now my concern is these girls have been rejecting you, and I'm afraid that maybe they'll do that when you go to the game. My concern also is that game is past your curfew. So we are able then to state our concerns, but we bring our children into a way that we can help them problem solve and think through, okay, what is the right solution here? And by the way you spoke to me, that's not appropriate. And so therefore there has to be a consequence for that. And now obviously the older our children are, the easier this is to do. In the toddler years, you're setting the consequence and here's why. But I think it's really important that, and this is where the feelings chart comes in handy, is we're able to connect our children, the right and left brain. It's their ability to start putting, oh, I felt sad. I felt embarrassed. I didn't realize why I was acting that way, but it's because I'm feeling this way. That's where a feelings chart really comes in handy, because it wires that brain, it wires our narrative, it wires our story to be able to make sense of why we're feeling the way that we're feeling around us. Emotions shouldn't be scary. We write in What Am I Feeling? A feeling is just a feeling. It's not in charge of you. But when we suppress them or repress them or deny them, what ends up happening is they do control us. They have more control over us than we have of them in that moment. Proverbs 16:32 says, patience is better than power, and controlling one's emotions than capturing a city. Because if we can't control our emotions, we could capture the city, but we're not going to be able to maintain control of it. We're not going to be able to lead it well. And so there's just a powerful component, whether that's a business, whether that's an organ, whatever it is, we can't lead well if we don't have control of our emotions, and we don't have control of our emotions if we don't name them and know what they are.
That's so good. Yeah. Okay, we have to take a listener question
Let's do it.
Okay. This is from Heather. She says, how do you break through the anger and frustration that comes with a house full of kids that are homeschooled with a spouse that's in their own world? What tools and tips can be used to be a woman of God and a more loving mother that doesn't yell all the time, but disciplines with calmness and love? Man. So I hear a mom who's very frustrated because I think she has a lot on her plate and she's often feeling alone with her spouse.
Yeah. That almost like gives me tears just hearing that.
Yeah.
Probably the homeschool mom part too. We homeschool. The overwhelm part. I have so much compassion for moms because the toll, like the mental toll, the emotional toll, the spiritual toll, it's a lot. And I think Heather, and we can talk about this, I think, more in a couple episodes where I understand things in a way the Lord has sort of taught me about the way he's made us. Like we've always separated out. I feel like in the church, we've done a really good job at separating out the body, the spirit of a person, sort of the soul, and like as if they're different. But that's not how God made us. He made us as these whole, beautiful beings. And so when one thing like this starts, it's like a cascading effect, right? It affects all the overwhelm, all the noise in the house, all the emotional, weight of connecting with this child and teaching this child and keeping this house clean, and a husband who it feels like has vacated positions that she wants him in. She feels alone. And the weight of it on her is so much that it puts the body in a state of threat. Like, I'm not okay. This isn't safe. And so it's going to come out in fight or flight, which is that's the yelling. That is, and then you shame yourself. I know how much I know this. You shame yourself for yelling at your kids. And now I'm I'm an angry mom. And I just want to say with so much compassion, you're not an angry mom. You're a mom who is in a stuck state of survival. And I'd love to, we'll talk about that more in this season, because there are ways to heal. There are ways to move out of it. And but that is probably what I would say to her is you have to that's work that you get to do for you. And the kids will learn, your spouse will learn as you have. But like we did in that first episode, just the containment hug, there are ways to bring, we call it regulation, but it's basically regulating a nervous system to make this full circle. It's felt safety for that mom to know and actually feel safe enough in her home, because home doesn't feel safe right now, so that the whole body can take an exhale of like, oh, we're not, in the middle of a war, because that's what it feels like. It genuinely feels like it's coming at you from all sides. And the anger makes a whole lot of sense, because it's trying to protect you from all these like little bullets that are getting shot at you. And I almost do. Can we just like pray for Heather?
Yeah,
and for all of the Heathers, because I think we've talked about this episode, but just the shame that comes with that. I think that we still carry all these years later. And I think the Lord is like, it takes our own kids to be like, Mom, I don't even remember that. And so Father, we just pray for Heather. We pray for all the Heathers that she represents, all the moms that feel exasperated and overwhelmed, that are giving their best and feel like it's still not enough. And then they wear this coat of shame. And I know that this is just exactly how an enemy would love to treat a mother who not only births life, but also nurtures it and cultivates it. So we just ask, Lord, that you would enter into every place where shame has been present, where lies have started to seed that I'm an angry mom and that I'm hurting my kids and that I regret these things that I've done. And I just ask that you would bathe in forgiveness, that you would bathe in grace and truth. And so, Father, would you place your hope, your joy, your peace into every home that's even listening right now, that they would actually feel a physical manifestation of your presence that feels like home, that feels safe, that feels like love. And I just ask, Lord, that you would give each of us the ability to be that for one another in conversation, in friendship, in prayer, that we would hold one another's arms up when we get to these places of exhaustion and frustration and fear, and that we would cut off all of the lies and replace them with your truth. We thank you, Jesus, for giving us that hope. We pray it in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for that.
Oh, I feel it. I feel it for me. So
thank you. Another great episode. Remember, we have something special for you this season. We're calling it the Healthy Home Guide, and it's adapted from Josh and Christi's book, Famous at Home. Just go to Candace.com to find the link, and it's also in our show notes. You could also get their book, Famous at Home, which is all about what our conversation this season is based on. Until next time, be grateful all day, every day. If you value local, trustworthy, and high-quality food, now is the perfect time to join the Good Ranchers family. I was thrilled when my first Good Ranchers box showed up and it was all still perfectly frozen. And what I really love about Good Ranchers is their commitment to transparency. They believe you have the right to know exactly what's in your food. I mean, hello. And they are also amazing supporters of this show. Good Ranchers sources all of their meat from local U.S. farms, so you're getting the best of the best. No antibiotics, no added hormones, just pure, delicious meat you can trust. And do you ever notice when you're in the store, when you buy chicken or beef, it costs more and the portions weigh less every time you buy it? But imagine having top quality, 100% American beef, chicken, pork, and wild-caught seafood delivered right to your door. Just head over to GoodRanchers.com and subscribe to any box to unlock savings. Good Ranchers is where you can get 100% USA grown meat you can trust that's tender and full of flavor every single time. With meat prices continuing to go up and the quality at the store going down, Good Ranchers can save you hundreds. Your taste buds, your wallet, and local ranchers will thank you. GoodRanchers.com, American meat delivered. Hey everybody, thanks so much for watching. Hit the like button if you watched this whole talk, and let me know if there's someone else you want me to interview. CandyRock Entertainment, all rights reserved.